Many are worried about what could happen after President Trump's executive order signaling mass deportations. Nebraska's largest school district is responding to those concerns. Our Taylor Johnson joins us with Omaha Public Schools' message to families.
Says it's not their mission to enforce federal immigration laws, and they don't plan to change that. Parents of some Omaha Public School students are scared as President Donald Trump plans to crack down on immigration. District leaders want them to know their children are safe in their care.
We want them to feel welcome and supported in our schools. And if this affects them, then it affects our ability to educate them.
There are 52,000 students in Omaha Public Schools. About 45% of families in the district speak a language other than English in the home, and 26% of students K through 12 are English learners.
We do have specific English language development courses for them at the middle and high school level. And we also have specific newcomer programs to help our students that are new to U.S. schools get acclimated.
Whether a student is undocumented is not something tracked by the school district. And based on a resolution passed by OPS in 2017, they will not interfere with that.
Unless specifically required by law, district employees, contractors, volunteers, and representatives will not use district resources solely for the purpose of detecting or assisting in the apprehension of persons who are here on an undocumented basis.
That same resolution says any immigration and customs personnel cannot enter district property without first notifying the proper chain of command.
We ask if anybody were to show up that they contact the superintendent, our general counsel, and they must have legal authority.
The school district is encouraging parents to keep their child in school. They also have plans in place in case a parent does not come back to pick up their child.
So making sure that as a community, the organizations that we partner with and that are connected with our families, that they're also on this, that we're all on the same page together to address that if it comes up.
According to OPS, they will be reviewing their 2017 resolution to see if any language updates are needed. However, they say it is sufficient in its current form. In the studio, Taylor Johnson, First Alert 6.